Imagine being declared clinically dead, only to return to life with an astonishing story that defies explanation. This is the extraordinary case of Margaret Ellis, a woman whose experience challenges science and inspires the soul. After being pronounced dead for 15 hours, Margaret came back with a message that left doctors, her family, and everyone who heard it in awe. What occurred during those hours, and what revelations did she bring back from the other side? Join us as we explore this incredible tale of life, death, and beyond. Margaret Ellis was known as a devoted mother and a kind-hearted woman with a deep sense of faith and an unwavering commitment to her family and community. She had always been a source of strength and grace, weathering life's challenges with quiet resilience. But in September 2006, an ordinary day turned into an extraordinary event that would change everything. Margaret had been going about her usual routine in her Kentucky home when she suddenly began to feel unwell. What started as mild discomfort quickly escalated into severe chest pain and difficulty breathing. Alarmed, her daughter Emma immediately called for help. Paramedics arrived within minutes and rushed Margaret to the nearest hospital. The atmosphere was tense as her family followed the ambulance, praying for her recovery. At the hospital, a team of doctors and nurses fought to save her life. Margaret had suffered a massive heart attack, and her heart struggled to pump blood. The medical team employed every method available: defibrillation, chest compressions, and emergency medications, but her condition remained critical. 4 hours, they worked tirelessly to stabilize her, but her heart continued to falter. At one devastating moment, Margaret's heart stopped completely. The room filled with the frantic sounds of monitors and the determined commands of the medical team. But despite their best efforts, her heart would not hold a steady rhythm. Her body was placed on life support, and the team attempted to restart her heart multiple times, only to face failure again and again. Finally, after exhausting all possible interventions, the doctors delivered heartbreaking news to Margaret's family. Her heart had stopped for too long, and her brain had been deprived of oxygen. Even if they managed to revive her, the damage to her brain would likely be irreversible. Tests confirmed the absence of brain activity, and the medical staff had no choice but to declare Margaret clinically dead. Her family was devastated. Margaret's son, Michael, was especially heartbroken. His mother had always been his source of wisdom, comfort, and strength, and the thought of losing her left him shattered. Friends and relatives gathered to pay their respects, each overcome with grief. Margaret's youngest grandchild, too young to grasp the gravity of the situation, asked innocently, "When is Grandma coming back?" As the hours passed, Margaret's lifeless body remained in the hospital room, awaiting arrangements for transport. Her loved ones stayed by her side, some holding her hand, others whispering prayers for strength. One of Margaret's closest friends, Sarah, placed a worn Bible on the table beside her and read passages aloud, hoping to bring solace to the grieving family. But as night fell, something unimaginable occurred. Michael, who had been sitting by his mother's bedside, noticed a slight movement. Margaret's hand twitched. At first, he thought it was a trick of his exhausted mind, but then it happened again. He called out, "Mom? Are you there?" A nurse entering the room to finalize the paperwork noticed something extraordinary: a faint pulse on the monitor. The medical team rushed back into the room, their disbelief evident. Margaret's heart had begun to beat again, faintly but unmistakably. Further tests revealed faint signs of brain activity, something no one thought possible after so many hours without oxygen. Against all odds, Margaret's body was showing signs of life. As doctors worked to stabilize her, the family, overcome with shock and hope, watched as Margaret's skin regained warmth and her breathing became more regular. By morning, her condition had improved to the point that some life support measures could be removed. Margaret Ellis, who had been clinically dead for 15 hours, was alive. Her recovery defied every expectation. Despite the prolonged lack of oxygen, Margaret showed no signs of brain damage or cognitive impairment. When she opened her eyes, Her family's relief turned to amazement as she began to speak. "I wasn't here," she said softly. "I was somewhere else." Margaret described an experience beyond anything she could have imagined. She spoke of a radiant light that enveloped her in peace and love, and of seeing the familiar faces of loved ones who had passed before her. "They told me it wasn't my time," she said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "I felt their love and their encouragement, but I knew I had to come back." Her story left everyone speechless. Doctors and nurses, unable to explain her revival, referred to it as nothing short of miraculous. Her family, once consumed by grief, now hung on her every word, finding hope and inspiration in her message. Margaret's experience transformed her life. She spoke of the importance of forgiveness, love, and faith, urging her loved ones to cherish every moment. "Life is fragile," she told her son. "Don't waste it on fear or anger. Love is what matters." Her story quickly spread, touching hearts and inspiring people to reflect on the mysteries of life and death. Margaret felt a profound sense of purpose in her second chance, dedicating her life to sharing her message of hope. She spoke at churches, participated in discussions on near-death experiences, and volunteered to comfort others facing loss or illness. "I don't know why I was brought back," Margaret often said, "but I know I have a mission: to remind people of the power of love and the beauty of life." Her journey from death to life wasn't just a miracle. It was a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. The pain of losing Margaret was profound, overwhelming, and seemingly impossible to endure. In those moments, faith became both a source of comfort and a test of resilience. How could such a devastating loss happen to someone who had lived a life defined by kindness and grace? Even the medical staff, despite their tireless efforts to save her, carried the heavy burden of knowing they had reached the limits of what medicine could achieve. Doctors and nurses gathered Margaret's son Michael and the rest of the family to explain her condition. They outlined the steps taken to revive her, describing the extent of her injuries with professional detachment. Words like irreversible brain damage and no chance of recovery were spoken with care, but to her grieving family, these clinical terms felt distant, almost incomprehensible. No explanation could soften the blow of such a profound loss. As the hours passed, the stark reality of Margaret's death began to set in. Decisions had to be made, a cruel task for Michael, who struggled to reconcile how his vibrant, loving mother could now be reduced to a series of logistical considerations. When should her body be transported? How would the funeral be arranged? Each choice felt like another wound, a painful reminder of her absence. Yet, even in the depths of their sorrow, the family clung to the memories of Margaret's extraordinary life. They shared stories of her warmth, her laughter, and her ability to bring light into any room. They spoke of her strength during difficult times, her unwavering dedication to her church, and her relentless efforts to better her community. Each recollection brought moments of bittersweet smiles, a flicker of comfort amidst the overwhelming grief. One of the most heart-wrenching moments came when Margaret's youngest grandchild, too young to fully grasp the gravity of the situation, innocently asked, "When is Grandma waking up?" The question pierced the room, bringing fresh waves of tears to everyone present. For the family, the only answer they could imagine was devastating. Never, or so they believed. Michael, consumed by a deep sense of loss, found himself questioning everything. Why had his mother, his rock and constant source of guidance, been taken so suddenly? Why had a woman so full of life been struck down without warning? He prayed with desperation, pleading for answers, for a sign, for anything that might ease his pain. Though logic told him it was hopeless, a flicker of hope still burned within him, refusing to let go entirely. As the hours wore on and night descended, the family began to make the painful decision to leave the hospital. Margaret's body lay still and cold, connected to a few remaining machines awaiting removal. The finality of it all was crushing. This was goodbye, and the weight of that reality was unbearable. But as they stood together, united in grief and love, none of them could have foreseen what was about to happen. Margaret's story was far from over. Unbeknownst to her family, something extraordinary was beginning to unfold, something that would defy every medical explanation and transform their despair into astonishment. For 15 hours, Margaret's body remained motionless in the dimly lit room, a haunting reminder of life's fragility. Her family, consumed by sorrow, had spent those hours shedding tears, whispering prayers, and silently mourning. The machines that had once monitored her heartbeat and sustained her life had long since been disconnected. By every medical standard, Margaret was gone. As the family prepared to leave, each step away from her room felt like an act of betrayal. Michael, however, couldn't bring himself to leave her side. He had prayed relentlessly for a miracle, but as the hours dragged on, even his unshakable faith began to falter. Refusing to completely abandon her, he sat quietly by her bed, staring at her lifeless form, searching for any sign, no matter how small, that she wasn't truly gone. Then, something remarkable happened. At first, it was almost imperceptible, a faint twitch in Margaret's hand. Michael dismissed it as a trick of his exhausted mind or a natural reflex. But moments later, the movement came again, more distinct this time. His breath caught in his throat as he leaned closer. "Mom!" he whispered, his voice trembling. There was no response, and her body remained still. A short while later, a nurse entered the room to complete the arrangements for Margaret's body to be transported to the morgue. As she approached the bed, she paused, noticing something unusual, a faint, irregular pulse on the monitor. Her initial thought was that it must be a malfunction. Yet, upon closer inspection, the pulse persisted, subtle but undeniably real. Startled, she immediately called for assistance. Within moments, a team of doctors and nurses rushed into the room. Their expressions were a mix of confusion and urgency. Margaret's body, which had been cold and lifeless for hours, was now showing unmistakable signs of life. A doctor checked for brain activity, expecting to find none. Instead, to his astonishment, faint electrical signals were present. It defied every known principle of medicine. Michael, who had been standing in stunned silence, felt his heart leap. "Is she alive?" he asked in a trembling voice. The doctor hesitated before replying. "We're seeing something. It's faint, but it's there. We need to act quickly." The medical team sprang into action, administering oxygen and carefully monitoring her vitals. It was a scene straight out of a movie. Margaret's skin, which had been pale and cool, began to regain faint signs of warmth. Her chest, still moments earlier, now rose and fell ever so slightly as her body struggled to breathe once more. It was as if life itself had returned to her. Word spread quickly throughout the hospital, and Margaret's room soon filled with astonished medical professionals and tearful family members. Michael clung to his mother's hand, his emotions a tumultuous blend of fear and hope. "Mom, can you hear me?" he whispered, his voice breaking. Her eyes remained closed, her expression still, but there was no denying the miracle unfolding before them. Doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize Margaret, though even they could not explain what they were witnessing. By all accounts, she had been clinically dead for hours, her body showing no signs of life during that time. Yet here she was, defying every expectation, her body slowly regaining strength. Margaret's story was only just beginning. Despite her faint brain activity, it was undeniable. There were signs of life. It was as though her body had been suspended in a liminal state, waiting for the precise moment to return. As the hours passed, Margaret's condition began to improve. Her pulse grew stronger, her breathing steadier, and by morning, her body was stable enough for the medical team to begin removing some of the supportive interventions. Against all medical expectations, Margaret was alive. Her family, once consumed by despair, was now overwhelmed by a mix of gratitude and disbelief. One of the doctors, visibly shaken by what he had witnessed, pulled Michael aside. "I've been practicing medicine for decades," he admitted, his voice tinged with awe. "I've never seen anything like this. There's no scientific explanation for what just happened. This is a miracle." As Margaret's strength gradually returned, questions began to surface. What had happened during those 15 hours? Had her soul truly left her body, only to return? Or had some unknown phenomenon occurred, one that lay beyond the boundaries of science? These mysteries lingered, unanswered but deeply felt by all who had witnessed her revival. For the moment, though, her family focused on one undeniable fact: Margaret was alive. Her return defied the boundaries of life and death, challenging everything they thought they understood about mortality. It was a moment etched into their memories, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the mysteries of existence. But the most astonishing part of her story was yet to unfold. When Margaret finally opened her eyes, she would share a message that left everyone speechless. Margaret's miraculous return to life had already stunned her family, friends, and the medical professionals who had declared her clinically dead for 15 hours. During that time, her body had shown no pulse, no brain activity, no vital signs of any kind. Yet, against all odds, she was alive. As her condition stabilized and her vital signs strengthened, her loved ones began to hope that she might wake up and recognize them. Doctors, however, warned that the extended lack of oxygen to her brain could have caused irreversible damage. What no one could have anticipated, though, was the extraordinary revelation she would share when she finally regained consciousness. It began subtly: a flutter of her eyelids, a deepening of her breaths, and a faint movement of her fingers against Michael's hand, where he had been sitting vigil. Michael leaned closer, his face streaked with tears, and whispered, "Mom, it's me. It's Michael. Can you hear me?" Margaret's lips trembled as if she were trying to speak. Moments later, she opened her eyes fully for the first time since the ordeal began. Her gaze, initially unfocused, sharpened as she scanned the room. When her eyes settled on Michael, she managed a faint but unmistakable smile. The relief in that moment was indescribable. Michael clutched her hand tightly, sobbing, "You're back. You're really back." The room quickly filled with medical staff eager to assess her cognitive state. They asked her basic questions: her name, the year, where she was, and to their astonishment, she answered each one correctly. Her voice was weak but steady, with no confusion or signs of the brain damage they had feared. It was as if she had simply awakened from a deep sleep, her mind intact and clear. Yet, something about Margaret seemed profoundly different. Her demeanor was serene, her tone calm, almost otherworldly. It was as if she carried an unshakable peace that transcended her physical state. After the initial examinations, Margaret turned to her family and spoke words that sent chills through the room. "I wasn't here," she said softly. Though her voice was quiet, it carried a weight that silenced everyone present. Michael leaned closer, his heart pounding. "What do you mean, Mom? Where were you?" Margaret took a deep breath, searching for the words to describe the indescribable. "I was gone," she said simply. "I left my body. I could see everything. The doctors, the machines, you praying by my side. But I wasn't in pain. I wasn't afraid. I was free." Her family listened in stunned silence as she recounted her experience. She described a brilliant light, warm, welcoming, and unlike anything she had ever seen. "It wasn't blinding," she explained, "but it surrounded me, filling me with love and peace." There were no words spoken, but she felt an overwhelming connection to everything she had ever loved, every moment of joy she had ever experienced, all at once. "It was overwhelming," she said, her voice trembling, "but in the best way." She spoke of seeing familiar presences, spirits of loved ones who had passed away. Though they did not speak, their presence was unmistakable. "They were waiting for me," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I felt their love, their encouragement. It was as if they were telling me it wasn't my time yet." Margaret also spoke of a profound sense of purpose, a message she felt compelled to share. "I wasn't told," she clarified. "I felt it, a deep understanding that I needed to return. There's so much more for us to learn about love, forgiveness, and faith. We take so much for granted here, but it's all connected. Life, death, everything. It's all part of something far greater than we can imagine." Her words left everyone in the room speechless. The medical staff, many of whom had witnessed countless cases of cardiac arrest and death, were deeply moved. One nurse, visibly emotional, whispered, "I've heard stories about near-death experiences, but nothing like this. It's incredible." Michael, still holding her hand, was overcome with a mix of awe and curiosity. "Mom," he asked, his voice trembling, "what does it mean? Why did you come back?" Margaret looked at him with calm determination. "I came back because there's more to do," she said. "More to share. I don't have all the answers, but I know this. Love is what matters. It's what connects us, what carries us forward. Everything else, fear, anger, regret, none of it matters in the end." Her message resonated deeply with everyone who heard it. Family members who had been paralyzed by grief now found themselves questioning their own understanding of life, death, and the afterlife. Margaret's experience wasn't just a source of comfort, it was a call to action, a reminder to focus on what truly matters. As news of Margaret's extraordinary journey spread, people began visiting her hospital room, drawn by a mix of curiosity and hope. She shared her story with calm certainty, offering words of love, faith, and healing to all who sought her out. Her words became a beacon of hope, touching lives and inspiring those who had lost their way to rediscover faith and purpose. Margaret's miraculous return was more than a medical anomaly. It was a testament to the mysteries of existence and the enduring power of love. In the days following her recovery, the hospital became a focal point of activity. Nurses, doctors, family members, and even strangers who had heard of her extraordinary experience came to visit her room, eager to meet the woman who had seemingly defied the natural order and returned with a profound message. Margaret, though still physically weak but steadily recovering, greeted everyone with a gentle smile and a calming presence that radiated peace. Her physical recovery alone was remarkable. Doctors, who initially predicted severe brain damage due to the prolonged lack of oxygen, were astonished. Not only had Margaret regained full cognitive function, but she also appeared more focused and sharper than before. She often remarked that she felt as though her mind and body had been renewed, saying, "I've been given a second chance at life, and I won't waste a moment of it." As her strength returned, Margaret reflected deeply on her experience and its implications for her future. She had always been a person of strong faith, but her journey beyond death had profoundly deepened her spiritual understanding. She spoke of an overwhelming sense of purpose, a conviction that her survival was no accident. "I was brought back for a reason," she frequently said. "There's a message I need to share, and I won't rest until I've fulfilled my purpose." Her first priority was reconnecting with her family. The near-death experience had forged an even stronger bond between them, strengthened by the ordeal. Margaret spent hours with her son Michael and her grandchildren, sharing stories, laughing, and emphasizing the importance of cherishing life's moments. "Life is so fragile," she often reminded them. "Don't let a single day go by without telling the people you love how much they mean to you." But Margaret's message wasn't meant solely for her family. She felt a profound responsibility to share her experience with the world, believing that her story could bring hope and healing to others. As soon as her health allowed, she began speaking at local churches, community centers, and support groups. Her message was straightforward yet deeply impactful. Love is the most powerful force in the universe, and forgiveness and faith are the keys to a meaningful life. Her talks drew increasingly large crowds, with people traveling long distances to hear her story. Many sought solace after losing loved ones, hoping Margaret's account would offer a glimpse of what lies beyond death. Others came out of curiosity, intrigued by the idea that someone could return from the brink of death with a message powerful enough to change lives. Margaret welcomed everyone warmly, listening to their stories and offering words of encouragement. In addition to public speaking, Margaret began collaborating with researchers studying near-death experiences. She participated in interviews, brain scans, and psychological evaluations to help scientists better understand the phenomenon. While some researchers approached her story with skepticism, others were deeply moved by the vividness and clarity of her recollections. "There's so much we don't know about consciousness and the human spirit," one researcher remarked. Margaret's case challenges everything we think we understand about life and death. Margaret also felt a personal calling to help others in need. She began volunteering at local hospitals, offering comfort to patients facing terminal illnesses or recovering from traumatic events. Her presence was a source of peace for many, as her gentle demeanor and reassuring words gave hope to those who felt lost or afraid. "She has this way of making you feel like everything will be okay," one patient said. "It's as if she's brought a piece of that peace back with her." As her story spread, Margaret was invited to share her experience on television programs, podcasts, and documentaries. She reached millions of viewers, always emphasizing the importance of love, compassion, and faith. Despite her growing recognition, Margaret remained humble, attributing her survival to a higher power. "This isn't about me," she often said. "It's about the message. I'm just the messenger." Her family, once overwhelmed by grief, found themselves inspired by her unwavering sense of purpose. Michael, in particular, became deeply involved in her mission, often accompanying her to speaking engagements and helping to organize events. "She's taught me to see life in a completely new way," Michael said. "Every moment is a gift, and I'm not going to waste it." Over time, Margaret's story created a ripple effect, inspiring countless others to re-examine their lives. Estranged families reconciled, individuals struggling with grief found solace, and those who had lost faith rediscovered their spirituality. Her message of love and forgiveness resonated with people from all walks of life, transcending religious and cultural boundaries. Despite her busy schedule, Margaret always made time for quiet reflection. She often retreated to a serene lakeside spot where she would sit in solitude, watching the water and praying. These moments of stillness reminded her of the profound peace she had felt during her near-death experience, a peace she carried with her every day. "I don't have all the answers," she admitted, "but I know this. We're here for a reason, and if we live with love and kindness, we're fulfilling that purpose." As the years passed, Margaret's story continued to inspire. She authored a book about her experience, which became a bestseller and was translated into multiple languages, reaching people across the globe. But for Margaret, the true reward was the impact her story had on the lives of others. "If my story can help even one person find peace," she said, "then it's all been worth it." Margaret's life became a testament to resilience, faith, and the transformative power of love. Her journey from death to life wasn't just a miracle. It was a reminder of the interconnectedness and beauty of existence. Though her time on Earth had seemed to come to an end, she returned with renewed purpose and a message that would touch hearts and change lives for generations to come.